this is just a phone call. This is Stephen Gordon just calling up the friends, or was there an audition process?
No, they asked everybody.
Just calling their buddies.
Well, because we were all in the same boat. None of us had anything to do.
Yeah.
So I said, yes, absolutely. I don't even know if we got paid.
That and so much more coming right up on today's episode of The Pod Spotter. You're listening to The Pod Spotter. I'm Zack Robidas. There are a shitload of pods out there to weed through, and that is why we are here. We're going to do the heavy lifting. We're going to find the diamonds in the rough. And every Monday, we're going to talk to the hosts and the creators of those pods. We're going to play clips, and if it's useful/entertaining, please subscribe to our little pod. Visit us at thepodspotter.com and on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at The Pod Spotter, and you're going to find some extra content there and info for upcoming shows. Thanks, everybody. Then you like what you Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's really a pleasure. I've been screening hundreds of podcasts. You know, they say it's hard to book your first Broadway show and impossible to book your second, but our guest today would say, hold my beer, because I have worked on roughly 14 Broadway productions. You might know Christopher Sieber from Broadway's Matilda, Pippin, Shrek, Monty Python, Spamalot, Chicago, Thoroughly Modern Millie, or Into the Woods, to name a few.
My God.
But yeah, it's a lot. But today, this Broadway bloodsucker joins us to talk about his new podcast, which is just so darn delightfully funny. I do need to warn you that once you invite it into your library, it just might never leave. Dracula, a comedy of terrors, is in the pod spotlight for today, and we are joined by Dracula himself. How are you, Christopher?
I'm great, Zack. Of course, Zack. Thank you. It's giving me something to do. I love this. Let's talk to other people.
Let's talk some Dracula, shall we?
Okay, yeah.
Because we have just been really enjoying this pod, and it's just odd now seeing this vibrant, handsome, robust man across from me on Zoom, and I've been listening to this stuffy 1,000-year-old vampire for the past couple days. It's very incongruous. The voice is beautiful. How did you land on the voice? How did you choose of all the Dracula voices?
That was actually the hardest part for me. I was, as an actor, you kind of try, and I sometimes, depending on the character, I always try and find the voice first, and I will walk around my house making weird noises with my voice and seeing if that kind of clicks in. But to find my voice was challenging because I started sounding like Ricardo Montalban from the 1980s Chrysler commercial, where he kept on saying rich Corinthian leather, rich Corinthian leather. And I when we were recording, I said, am I sounding like Ricardo Montalban? Because I don't want to sound like Ricardo Montalban. But if you listen to the podcast, there's a couple Ricardo Montalban in there.
Let's hear Ricardo isms or not in a little piece of audio from Dracula's introduction, your first scene in Dracula, a Comedy of Terrors. Let's listen to Christopher, shall we?
Okay. Welcome to my house. Please note that you have entered on the no duress and of your own free will.
Isn't that a unique greeting?
Liability issues.
You get some Bella in there for sure.
It just makes me laugh hearing it again. I've listened to it so many times myself because it's just so goofy. And but yeah, that I was laughing just because there's Ricardo Montalban.
It's the thing, you can't steer away from it once you're thinking about it. It's like, there it is. I can't get out of it. I can't get out of the way now. I can't. But are you an outside typically when you're doing not just voice acting but full body acting? Are you outside in kind of worker or inside out? But I mean, do you try to find the exterior things first, the movements, the voice?
Yeah, I usually what I call it the big broad brush stroke. Just get it down, just get the words in your face, and then the movement in your body, and then for me, it just kind of tumbles along, and then I get into the story and the relationships between people and characters. And then it kind of morphs all in one thing. I take my time doing things like that. And, especially when you're doing theater, you discover things new things every single time you do like a performance. So there's always something new. But yeah, I usually start with a big broad brush stroke and then find little details as I go along and just kind of add them on. So it's like a truckload of stuff behind me of just ideas and things that, I draw from.
You don't, this is done. Once it's in the can, it's recorded, it's out there. You can't add to it. There's not 700 performances. So I'm curious then, are you building after the fact? But now that you've listened to it so many times, you're like, oh, I should have.
Well, the weird part about it, because this whole thing came about with Steve and Gordon's amazing story. Gordon was the director and Steve was the writer, and they were on with us the entire time. But I recorded it. I didn't have this fancy schmancy microphone that I have now. I recorded it with this. This is a Rosetta Stone.
Oh,
a Rosetta Stone headpiece where
look at that.
You like, yes, sí habla español.
Oh, so that helped you with the accent then. Rosetta Stone.
But it was so funny because this is not necessarily any kind of professional mic whatsoever, but we made it work because I had a pillow. I put a pillow over here while I was talking in the mic so it wouldn't bounce back. I had a beret that I would put around it to give it a little more or less pop. It was insane. It was total gonzo recording, but it ended up being so great.
Yeah, it may have lended itself to the sort of ethereal otherworldliness that we hear there. It's so funny how you're hearing that now, how like everyone seems to be building these ad hoc sort of like it's amazing that there's not just a cheap home, put a sack over our head for $50 and let me record something. Every time you talk to someone, I'm like, they're like, I hid in the curtains. I had to go to my car. This is crazy. Let's invent something.
Do you know Alan Tudyk? Alan Tudyk was also in the podcast.
Of course, the narrator. Yeah.
He's a voiceover god. I mean, he's voice of Star Wars and all sorts of things. And we did Spam a lot together. And there's a picture of him because I don't think he was actually in his home. I think he was somewhere in Canada or something. But he recorded it, and he had a blanket fort that he built.
Oh my god!
He was in this blanket fort, and we all kind of, and none of us were in the same room the entire time. I recorded most of mine just by myself, and Gordon and Steven would just tell me, do this, don't do that. That sounds weird. Just that. So that's how we did it. But it was a play, and I believe they were going to do it out at Bucks County Playhouse in Pennsylvania, or it's in San Diego, or they had done it already. I think they had asked me to do it, but I was doing something else. I wasn't able to do it. But it was an actual play. And then they thought, well, we have this. Why don't we make it a radio play? And they made it in the style of a radio play.
Wow.
I think they asked me originally to play the grave digger.
The grave digger.
It goes by really fast. But he had some funny. It was just like one scene. It was really small, but it was one scene.
You went from an extra to the guy.
Well, I think originally Steve and Gordon, because they always ask me to do their things, and I'm always, luckily, knock on wood, I've always been busy, and I am unavailable for them. But I love them, and I would always say yes if I'm around. Yeah. And this was one of those cases where I was around, and they offered me Gravedigger, and I was like, yeah, fine, whatever you need. I'm in. And I think somebody dropped out.
Come on.
So
who's busy? Who has a job?
I think it was John Stamos was supposed to be Dracula originally.
But John's in it, right? He is
in it. He's Elvis. Yeah. He's the Elvis guy.
Let's hear a little of Lord Swizzle Hips while we're talking about him. Yeah,
there's John Stamos.
Here's John Stamos as Lord Swizzle Hips.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you very much.
Pleasure. Nice to see all this attention being lavished on my daughter.
Your other daughter?
Yeah, the hot one. If I get a little alone time with her, I'm sure I can convince her to change her mind.
Don't be rude, Swivel Hips. I was the first to arrive this evening.
We came together, moron.
There's John. I think that he did quite a bit of Elvis on Full House. That's
On
probably
Full House.
why. Yeah,
On Full House,
that's
yeah.
probably why your creative team was like, let's easy one here. Let's get him in here.
We had John and I actually met years ago. We have one thing in common. I worked with the Olsen twins. I was their father on ABC, a show called Two of a Kind on TGIF, and I was a single father. Dead wife. Hilarious.
Yeah, that's
and I had a love interest.
comedy gold.
It's comedy gold. Always a dead wife is hilarious. And but John came by the set. We were at Warner Brothers, and he came by the set, and we just started talking. And because he's a swell guy, he's just really great. He's a wonderful, lovely guy. And then, of course, John's been doing Broadway, and I've been doing Broadway, and so we've just kind of known each other. And it's kind of one of those great things where Broadway always brings people together. And so when I heard John was doing it, I was like, oh, I hope I'm on the recording. We can do something together. But and what makes it even funnier is the video or the audio editing with the sound effects, because we didn't know what they were going to do with it, and then end up with these amazing sound effects.
See you soon, Jonathan. Godspeed.
But I thought... Perhaps I ought to sing to make myself a little less afraid. Yes. Raindrops on roses. Oh, look at that. It worked. And whiskers on kittens. Hello? Hello, is someone there?
Jonathan.
Yes, that's me.
You're not going to get that listening to Nice White Parents. You're just not going to get that kind of sound engineering anywhere but here. And you come with some voice experience though to Dracula. This wasn't your first rodeo with just doing voiceovers.
I have been the voice of so many Broadway shows.
What do you mean?
The commercials that you hear on TV and the radio.
Oh.
I was the voice of Pippin and Chicago and Matilda and I think Beauty and the Beasts.
Can we get a little of that? I was
like, come see Pippin at the Music Box Theater.
Oh yeah,
something like
guy.
that. That guy. Yeah, I'm that guy.
Do you ever get to use that voice in other facets of your life? Do you ever answer the phone as that guy, or ask your partner to make eggs in that voice?
No, he finds that annoying. Please make some eggs. Why don't you make some eggs for me now?
It's not all silliness here. No. Dracula gets
so impassioned.
That's the word.
And he gets so like everything is so sexy. Yes. Ooh, and he just loves the words he's using and everything's good. I was so like
yeah.
I was impassioned talking.
That's what I hear. That's what I hear. I hear that guy. I hear that guy.
Back and I was like, what did I do? My God. And it was because I was acting too hard. But
stop acting so hard. My goodness. Let's hear some of that hard acting in not just the silly, but in the dramatic side of Dracula, shall we?
Okay.
You don't know what it is to be alone. From the time I was a child, I had to endure the scorn and ridicule of other children in my village. They bullied me, stormed my house with tortures and horrible epithets, but I got my revenge.
How's that?
By becoming very good-looking. Also rich and immortal. That's pretty major.
Did you say...
But you can only drink and shop and sleep around for so long until it begins to feel like you've eaten too much dessert and you're rotting inside.
Oh, you poor thing.
Share my life with me, the good and the bad. Celebrate the extraordinary. Bear witness to the mundane. And this is something I have never said to anyone before in my life. Tell me more about you.
Such a great line. That's such a good line.
But you can feel my shoulders.
Oh, I feel it. But I also feel I'm in that room. It's a little smoky. There's a candelabra over there. And you're telling me that it's not, that you're painting a very different picture. Now I'm just seeing this contorted body and
trying to scream into a pillow.
Dracula, we're a fan of games here. We're a fan of trivia.
Oh.
And you'll see behind me, we have this bookshelf adorned with some swag, some pod swag from all the pods that have visited us and answered their trivia questions correctly. And so if you're willing, I'd like to put the test to you, sir.
Fine.
Christopher Sieber, I'm going to play for you 3 famous vampires.
Okay.
And let's see how many you can identify. Get 2 out of 3, and we're going to place this Dracula, a comedy of terrors koozie, proudly on the bookshelf behind us in perpetuity, forever.
So much pressure. So much pressure.
Are you ready to identify these famous vampires?
Okay.
Number 1.
Welcome to my home. Enter freely of your own will and leave some of the happiness you bring.
Count Dracula.
I am Dracula. And I bid you welcome, Mr. Harcourt, to my house.
Correctly identify.
It's either Bella or Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman is correct.
That's it. I wasn't sure because
out of his mind in that performance.
Oh, he was so good.
He's so good.
Keanu was amazing.
Keanu's holding up some clothes, just nice in that one. He's
holding
working
up
on
some clothes.
He's doing his. He's waiting for John Wick. He's fine. He's very handsome. He's very handsome.
Yeah.
Gary.
He kind of had an English accent.
It didn't matter. So good looking, impossibly good looking at that age. It just doesn't matter. You're 1 for 1. Let's hear vampire number 2.
Mr. Harker, I'm glad that you arrived safely. I am Dracula, and I welcome you to my house. I must apologize for not being here to greet you personally, but I trust that you have found everything you needed. It was the least that I could do after such a journey, and tiring for you, no doubt. Permit me to show you to your room. Now, please, allow me.
Oh, my God.
Tough.
Is it Ben Kingsley?
That is the famous Christopher Lee Dracula.
Christopher Lee Dracula.
Terrifying. Oh. We had only seen Bella and the slow moving and then Christopher Lee comes in. He's like this buoyant bat thing. He's terrifying. Very iconic vampire.
I forgot Christopher Lee did that.
That's okay. You catch this last vampire, and the koozie makes the bookshelf. Let's hear vampire number 3.
That's 1. 1 bat. 2 bats. 3 fabulous flyers.
Correctly identify vampire number 3.
Is that the Count from Sesame Street?
Oh, that's Count Von Count from Sesame Street. Correct. 2 out of 3.
Okay.
That ain't bad. Dracula koozie makes it.
Oh, thank
Congratulations.
God. I was scared.
Guys, we're going to take a little break. When we come back, we'll be joined by a few more creatives from Dracula, a comedy of terrors. We are here to be your personal podcast assistant. We are finding great content for you. And if you like the show, please check us out and subscribe. Visit thepodspotter.com and on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram at thepodspotter for lots of cool stuff. And please leave a review. Subscribe, rate, judge us on Apple Podcasts, and help spread the word. We're going to release every Monday with a review of a great new pod, and we're just going to keep plowing ahead. So please keep listening. If you have suggestions for future pods, drop us a note on any of those social media platforms I mentioned or thepodspotter.com. Thanks, everybody. So some call this period in our history the Great Reset. Economists are seeing a revitalization of old forgotten trends. Drive-ins are seeing a surge in popularity. Looms are nearly impossible to buy. Just about everyone learned how to knit. And so it's only appropriate that 2 Broadway creatives should have the audacity to attempt to resurrect the ancient art form of radio theater. Joining us to continue our discussion of Dracula, a comedy of terrors, is Gordon Greenberg and Steve Rosen. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for sharing this pod, and thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much for inviting us. Hi.
Thank you for having us.
Can you take us through the early days of just assembling this, getting this together, getting it on its feet in the time of COVID, what that process was like?
Sure. We had a lot of creative energy to burn at the beginning of COVID. And we were right there, sort of trying to figure out what we wanted to make next, what we wanted to create. And I remember that when we did the very first ever reading of Dracula, it was actually in Florida at a theater called the Maltz, which is in Palm Beach. My father was there, and he had never seen a reading. And after the reading, he kept calling it our radio show. Because to him, it looked like a radio show from the 40s or 50s that he used to see. And he'd say, when are you going to put that radio show up? And I finally said, what if we made it a radio show? Because it makes sense. And it fit stylistically into that world. And we were fortunate to have an amazing score already completed from the production that we had done in Florida. We were continuing to work on the show at Chicago Shakes. And we really wanted to put it up again and hear some of the changes. And the great advantage, the blessing of the whole thing was this cast, and that we had people of the caliber of Chris, who Steve and I both adore and were huge fans of, but Chris is never available. That's the thing, because he works so much. So I'm used to always getting the thank you. He's honored. He can't do it. And in this case, I knew that was a lie. So you know you're available. Come and do it. And he did. And he was so good, and joined by just a glorious parade of super talented and motley people.
Yeah. Tell me about Dracula, Comedy of Terrors. What else, other than working with those guys in this cast, drew you to this project? Because this is a fundraiser also, correct?
It's also a fundraiser, yeah, for Broadway Cares and Actors Fund and Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, both of which I've been very involved in. Mostly Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, because what we do, well, first of all, let me tell you about the organization and the Actors Fund. Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS is a wonderful organization where they collect money from us, the Broadway performers. We will do a show. We will make an appeal to the audience after a Broadway show with red buckets, and people just drop $1 in there. But what Broadway Cares, it's a grants program, and so what they do is, if there is like let's say a hospice that might need a new refrigerator, or their van needs new tires, or like the small things that people really don't ever think about. It's not just like a gigantic, here's $5,000 or something. Sometimes it's just a new refrigerator. And Broadway Cares will take care of large things, but also like detail things, just like new tires on a van, or just helping, even prescriptions. They will help out. And the Phyllis Newman Women's Health Initiative is also included in that, and it's a free clinic for women for cervical or breast cancer. They give to the American Red Cross Wounded Warriors program, and we give, and it's non-political, and we give to whomever needs it. But we also give money from Broadway Cares that we raise to the Actors Fund, which is another charity I'm involved with. But Actors Fund will help you if you're in the entertainment industry. Whatever you do in the it doesn't matter. You don't have to be an actor. You don't have to be a performer. If you're even an usher, or a box office person, as long as you work in the industry in any capacity, the Actors Fund is there for you to help with financial things. It's
a big reason why this pod's near and dear to me. I got some of my early healthcare from the Actors Fund when I was a poor 20-something, moved to New York. It's an amazing organization. You show them a paycheck that, or anything, like I did a reading for $50, and their belief is if you are contributing culturally in some way, then we're taking care of you. We're going to take care of some. And so like I got some flu shots or something from them when I was like bartending, and it's an amazing organization. The Actors Fund, I think, was set up in like 1880.
Yeah, it's been well over 100 years now. Yeah,
1880. It was because actors post Civil War, actors post Lincoln had kind of a bad reputation. That John Wilkes guy, and so like actors notoriously couldn't panhandle. People wouldn't. There was a horrible stigma.
Right.
So the Actors Fund initially was set up because help these poor people out. And so fast forward, 100 some years, and I'm getting a flu shot, thank God, from the Actors Fund. So
that was really the huge thing for us at the start of all of this, because Gordon and I, first of all, Gordon Greenberg is like one of the most stalwart and ambitious and creative people that you could ever possibly meet. And when everyone was sitting around going like, what are we going to do? We're all so stuck. Gordon was like, we have to do something. How can we help? And sort of use this combination of this show that we had written that could work in this format as a means to raising, to doing what we could do to help. It's very much in theater makers and a wheelhouse to like use what we do to be helpful, whether it's a benefit, concert we're in or something.
And so Dracula is here to help. This is a helping Dracula. Can you explain to me how it works exactly? Is the pod just there to raise awareness for the Actors Fund? How does it actually monetarily help the fund and Broadway Cares and Equity Fights AIDS?
It was, the idea is that before and after every episode, because this is divided into 4 different episodes, actually. The play itself is written as a 1-act, 90-minute play, but we divided it into 4 episodes so that before and after each one, there is an appeal for donations to the Actors Fund. There was a special release of 1 straight-through episode that doesn't do commercial breaks in and out. But that appeal is designed to raise money and bring people's attention to the Actors Fund as a charity, not only for actors. That industry has been hit especially hard by COVID because there is no theater happening now, and there won't be for at least another 6 months. So it's difficult for all of us to comprehend, not only emotionally, but financially. And for people in dire straits, the Actors Fund is there.
Yeah, tough time for everyone indeed. And so when you head over to the Actors Fund, I made my donation because I enjoyed your pod so much the other day. And
thank you. That's awesome.
What's awesome about it is you can pick where the funds go to, and you can pick whose name your donation is made out. You can be specific about how you want the gift made out. And so there are a lot of options for you to give, and you can give whatever you want. You can give $5. It doesn't matter. Give whatever you can. Ashley Park is Lucy, John Stamos, Swizzle Hips. You got Alan Tudyk just being a narrator. And let's hear a little bit from Richard Kynes, old sea captain, shall we?
I am now left alone at the helm of what is essentially a ghost ship, battling 30-foot swells and winds of 18 knots or more. If I should meet my watery end, please tell my wife and my mistress that she was the only woman I ever loved. Oh no! Oh! Can that be a wall of water? Here it comes! The big one! I go down
out of his mind. Out of his mind.
Now, just such a genius. Good. That guy, I mean, just the ability to acting and voice acting are like stage acting and screen acting, and voice acting is a totally different thing. And he is just so magnificent at that.
His instincts
are just amazing.
Yeah. And he holds nothing back.
He holds nothing back. And he is who he is. He is exactly that all the time. He's all heart. Genuine dude.
That's what we love about him.
Yeah. Guys, how do you listen to this pod? There are jogging pods, there are cooking pods, there's workout pod. How would you like people to experience your pod, Dracula, Comedy of Terrors?
I would say in a romantic setting, with candles, like rain. It's interesting because I actually think this is a great thing to listen to with your kids. I think it's a really fun family podcast that everyone can enjoy together because the sense of humor, it gets a bit naughty at times, but I feel like it would fly over your kids' heads if it's something that they shouldn't be responding to. Yeah. We've heard good things about hikes, for the Los Angeles based, people seem to enjoy it as a hiking companion because it's 90 minutes. So it's a short hike, but a healthy and humorous one.
Yeah. Gordon and Steve are giving you an evening of theater. I think I'd agree with you. Let's go way back with this one. Turn the lights down low, light a few candles, and have an evening of theater. Make dinner, have a meal, and then sit down with your family, sit down with your loved ones, and put on the old radio play. And it's 2 acts. Take a little break in between and enjoy it. And if you have a few laughs and enjoy yourselves, then head over and support the Actors Fund and Broadway Cares because, it's just a good cause, and that's what we're doing. That's what we're here for, helping folks, using our art to help folks. Yes. I was thinking about my Dracula history here and about how we're 100 years now from Nosferatu, from Dracula coming over here to America for the very first time. And I'm thinking about how audiences then were enjoying Dracula, Nosferatu, with the backdrop of that plague just ending. It was right on the heels of the great Spanish influenza. And here we are again, revisiting Dracula under a similar sort of microscope, thinking about these huge things of life and death. And what are you going to do with the time you are given? That's a huge sort of plot theme of your play of it. You hear Lucy talk about how you have to come close to death in order to figure out how to live. And I'm wondering if any of that was in your thought at all when you were coming up with which play will we pick for this benefit.
Interestingly, when we started working on it, it carried the same resonance, but for different reasons. And then in the midst of the pandemic, it all of a sudden became relevant in a way that we were not necessarily happy about. But it certainly speaks to the time that we're in right now because of the notion of a plague that's inside of this that is transmitted from one person to another. I think that it's ever present in this play, and probably the reason that the story itself has remained so popular for all these years, that it's terrifying in that we understand that although there is no such thing as a vampire, or we may choose to believe that there's no such thing as a vampire, we understand that the underlying illness that's running through the veins of this play exists in different ways, whether it's informational, whether it's about ignorance or racism or actual disease. It exists. And we all have to sort of be aware of it if we want to circumnavigate it and control it.
But before we get too lofty and too heady, let's remember
it's also funny. Sorry.
Yeah. We wanted to make people laugh because
we're
there was
eating
a
bugs
pandemic.
and we're
Yeah, play Alex Brightman eating bugs. Just go back to the bugs.
It is both things, and that is sort of the nature of these clips that we've been playing. It's both. It's the serious and it's the silly, and you can't get too dark, and you can't be too light either. But I think that it's just the huge success of the pod is that everybody's in the same play and everybody's having such a damn good time. Everybody's your whole cast is having fun, and
which is amazing because none of them were there at the same time.
Yeah, how do you create, I guess, chemistry and that camaraderie when everyone's on Zoom alone, isolated in a box?
Well, this was still at the very, very early stages of all of this before most people had done any real sort of recording at home, and it would send their entire file in. And we did a lot of sort of coaching through sections with actors if we couldn't get two people together. Usually I or Gordon would read with the other person. And, the cast was all so professional and so funny and easy that they were willing to really go for it and try anything. And it is a testament to Bart Fassbender and to all the people at BPN, how good it sounds considering that no two people were recording in the same condition.
Unbelievable. I want to just hear it, just to highlight Bart's deftness at editing. Let's listen to a group scene. This is from episode 2.
Well done, Daddy.
Thank you, Mimi. Why don't you introduce me to your gentlemen friends?
Yes, Father. This is the very charming Lord Cavendish.
How do you do?
And the handsome Lord Windsor.
Lovely to meet you. Charmed, I'm sure.
Pleasure. Nice to see all this attention being lavished on my daughter.
But Lucy is no longer on the market. I, however, am unencumbered by any suitors at all. So, if you gentlemen should have even the slightest bit of interest...
All right. Soft touch, darling.
Care for a top-off, sir?
Kitty, please go fetch Lucy and Jonathan. You can tell the lovebirds they have a restless crowd down here.
There's so much going on in that scene. People are responding to intonation, they're responding to energy, they're responding to sound cues that aren't there. You're telling me no one was in a room together for any of that? That's just...
Two of the actors were. Rob McClure was in the room with Rob McClure because he played two of those suitors. He was Cavendish and Lord Windsor. So he was actually having a conversation with himself. So he was in the same place.
So good, guys. So good. And Bart really does it. What was his last name again? Bart Fassbender?
Fassbender, yeah.
Does a nice job. That's really good stuff. Could have just played all of Annalee Ashford's stuff. She's out of her mind in this. She's actually so like. Was there any direction there for Annalee, or did she come in with that character and you're like, "Yep, go, yep, do that weirdness, whatever that is"?
She really picked up on it. It was quite different than the version in the stage play. It was played by a 60-year-old man.
Awesome.
Dressed as a young girl, a la Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. It was quite different. And so we just leaned hard into what her instincts were. And they're, as we know, excellent. So she created something brand new.
Let's hear a bit of Mina, the daughter who got all the recessive genes.
I'm back. Down the hatch. If I may say so, that's a very handsome dress you're wearing.
No, it's a cape.
Whatever it is, it's very becoming.
Thank you, Mina.
Oh, you remember my name. Oh.
Has anyone ever told you that you have a beautiful neck?
No, they haven't. They usually comment on my strong shoulders and prominent Adam's apple.
You don't say.
I know, it's silly. Men are ever so predictable. But my neck, what a refreshing compliment.
Oh my God, out of her mind.
I mean, to have her and Christopher Sieber doing this scene together, it's just mind-blowing for us as writers. The talent is amazing.
So lucky.
It just was so lucky.
Annalee was a nice find from the 60-year-old man version. I'm wondering if there are other, can you think of some other things that worked better in an audio version that you couldn't do in a stage? What were some advantages of working in this form?
I mean, the interesting thing is that the stage version affords us a lot of territory for physical comedy. So absent that, we were able to write into things that couldn't be done on stage. For example, when Mina is possessed, we sort of do a whole bit with how long her arms become, because on stage, you're only looking at it from the back of the headboard. So you don't see the body, you just see almost a rubber arm that's reaching all the way out and goes 17 feet on either side and chokes, because they're both puppets. They're choking the people that are trying to hold her. But what we did instead for this is write something that feels so far out that you probably couldn't do it on stage. And if you did, it would be so costly and cumbersome, it would lose the humor. So we have her floating around and dancing on the ceiling, a la Lionel Richie. And we just sort of wrote into the absurdity of it all.
The cast size as well, when we did this at the Maltz Jupiter, we did the entire show with a cast of 5 people. So every actor was playing 3 or 4 different characters. So there was a lot of fun to be had at actors sort of exiting as one character and immediately returning as someone else. And so what this afforded us the ability to do is really flesh out the world and the characters. So you have all of these different kinds of voices, types of actors. And so it was a really fun way to hear it done that way.
When is this gratifying, this process? In you get the applause, you get opening night for a play, and how is this gratifying, I guess, and how does that differ from obviously getting the full run and production of a Broadway show?
Well, I think that speaking for myself, that getting the chance to collaborate with people outside of the box in which you live, that was extremely gratifying. The idea that you can spend time making something, and it's a difficult time, I think, for everybody within our business. I think writers, especially at this moment, what you do have that you usually don't have is a lot more time. And so in many senses, there's a tremendous urge and desire to be proactive and creative and be making all the time. But at the same time, you're still feeling this this thing in front of you, the carrot that has been motivating you. We don't know when we're going to be able to do any of these things. So are we doing it as a creative exercise, or are we doing it knowing when that next place is going to be? But I think that the joy is in the making. And so any opportunities that we can have to sort of do something, to do a reading, to communicate with each other, I think that it's just a great time to sort of observe what's happening in the world, taking that rest, and then trying to spend your days making something positive,
Beautifully said, Steve. Yeah. Well, gentlemen, Christopher answered his trivia questions correctly and earned Dracula koozie a permanent place on our bookshelf. But if you answer these questions correctly, you're going to become a top shelf pod. We're going to put it way up here, predominantly displayed, the Dracula koozie in perpetuity. If you answer these questions in a little segment we like to call How Well Do You Know Your Pod? 3 questions about your podcast, and let's see how well you know your baby. Are you ready? And you can answer them together. You can even use Christopher. Question the first. What is the name of the show Alan Tudyk, the narrator, mistakenly says during the end credits?
Oh my goodness. I cannot believe this. And there's no cheating, right?
No Googling. Yeah, hands up for these answers.
I know what it is. I know what it is.
Steve's got it?
Because we had a couple of them. But I think the one we landed was Geppetto and his little wooden boy.
Oh, right. Yes, Geppetto.
Let's have a listen, see if that's correct.
Thus concludes the heartwarming tale of Geppetto, a man and his wood... What? Shit. Dracula, a comedy of terrors, was written by Greenberg and Steve Rosen.
Isn't that guy amazing? I mean, holy cow.
So he fired some alts at you and you were like, yeah, that one. Is that how it worked?
I think, honestly, we just went through a bunch of ridiculousness.
But you create that space, right? You create that space of hey, whatever you guys, if you have something, you can throw it in here. You clearly weren't I believe it says Dracula there. You have to say Dracula. Is that correct?
Well, I will say, there was a bit of improv around the dialogue, but pretty much it was all scripted. I got to say, including Geppetto, all of that was written down.
You didn't let Christopher keep any babies?
Christopher did do one very, very funny thing that wound up in there. And every time Dracula signs one of the papers...
Hold it. Oh. You're going to kill my next question.
Okay, never mind.
No, let's go right to it. How does Dracula... This is amazing. How does Dracula punctuate his signature of Jonathan's legal documents?
Oh, there you go. And that's a Sieberism.
And that is a Christopher baby. Does that get cut in the live version? Do you think he gets through previews and then you're like, nah, get that out of here? That's got to stay, right? Let's hear. Do we have it queued up? Let's hear how Dracula punctuates his paperwork.
I have all the legal documents for you to take ownership of your 5 new properties.
Wonderful.
So I'll just need your autograph here,
blah blah,
here,
blah blah,
here,
blah blah,
here,
blah,
and here.
blah blah.
Lovely.
I'm pulling this audio. And, I hear these sometimes 8 or 9 times. And every time, Christopher, that got me. That broke me. Stupid blah.
Blah, 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 blah.
It just kind of came out. And it was one of those moments. And I didn't even think it was that funny. I just kind of did it blah, 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 blah. And it was really stupid.
It's the playground that is created that allows you to go ahead.
It's also what's amazing about this art form, I will say, because you're listening so closely, all of these little idiomatic expressions that may come out. And Chris, I'm sure this happens to you a lot in a play, in a show, but nobody really notices because they're looking at a 40-foot stage and a set and your body and your costume and everything else. But when you're zeroed in on just that one sense, it's fascinating how much you can really take in.
Yeah, for sure.
And that the humor becomes something that he was doing to amuse himself in the moment. But because he's under a microscope, we're enjoying it and cracking up. And we have a great window into his sensibility.
Isn't that the best?
We, Steve and I, and Alan Tudyk, we did Spam-A-Lot on Broadway together.
Right.
And Mike Nichols was so good with us, and Eric Idle as well, kind of letting us go, But Mike would always just say, hey, you know, he would call a thing a baby. So it's like a bit or something that's a turn and a squeak that just kind of happens, but it gets a reaction from the audience. Doesn't necessarily help the story, but it's funny. And Mike was always encouraging us, have a baby. That's great, but that baby needs to die soon.
Oh,
you can only have that baby for so long.
And isn't it the worst when they die in front of people? Like, it's making the cast laugh the whole run, and then you get out there for first preview, and it just falls on its face, and you're like, oh my God.
Well, I mean, sometimes it's just that there's no laugh. There's no laugh where there was a laugh. That sometimes that turn and squeak, as Christopher put it, is sometimes if that's getting a laugh every night, you stop playing into the story and you start playing into the turn and the squeak, which is not helping the story. And so sometimes you just got to get rid of it for the sake of telling the story. And Christopher is so fucking brilliant. So brilliant at doing that.
There's a famous story about that I always use with casts, and I'm sure you probably both heard it at some point. But apparently there was a show with both of the Lunts were in, I guess, and one of them had to ask for a cup of tea at a certain point, and it was the key to a big laugh based on whatever came before it in the narrative in the script. And as the laughs died over the months, one of them, whoever said it, pushed harder and harder into that request for the tea until he ground that thing into 0 laughs. And he said to his wife, I do not understand it. What is happening? I'm asking. I really want that tea. I mean, I'm asking as hard as possible. And she says, if you could ask for a cup of tea, you will get the laugh. If you ask for a laugh, you'll get nothing. And that's sort of what it boils down to, is remembering.
First, you asked for the tea, and then you began asking for the laugh. Yes, yeah. Oh, brutal! But there's no audience for this, so you don't know when. Like, what is your barometer for those little moments? If it's making you laugh, then, or did you let other people listen to a cut before you released it to the world?
There were moments where we just cracked ourselves up.
Yeah,
because Stephen and Gordon's script is so funny, but the other thing too is we actually are very good friends, and we've known each other for decades, so we already know our personalities, how we work together anyway. But so there were moments where we had to just stop because we were just laughing so hard. We were just giggling. We couldn't get through lines and stuff because we were just laughing because it's so ridiculously weird and funny and absurd at times. So,
and the other thing about a podcast is there's not a lot of rehearsal, so you're kind of sparking immediately with someone's sense of whimsy and truth, and so you're getting that first impulse frequently, or at least third, and it doesn't have the time to become stale, which is great.
Well, good directors recognize those moments, and good writers recognize them and say, yeah, run with it. But so a testament to your true collaboration. We have one more question. You've gotten 2 all right already, but let's just ask the third one out of formality. This one's Spot the Troll. There's going to be 3 reviews read to you, reviews of your podcast.
Oh, God.
You're going to spot the troll here. There's 1 troll. 2 are real. 1's the troll. 1 I just made up.
It's going to be my mother. I have a feeling this is going to be my mother.
No. It's not a real. It's just me making bullshit up. 2 are real, though. Spot the troll. Just wish there were more. Fantastic performances from Broadway heavy hitters. This pod sucks, but in a good way. 2 are real. 1 is fake. Spot the troll.
I guess number 3. It sounds a little trolly.
Number 3 is the troll, but it will be the real one. We're going to put that up. That's my review. This pod sucks, but in a good way. Listen to the pod with your loved ones. Sit around, take an intermission, and then head over to the Actors Fund and give a little, for crying out loud.
It's also great in the car. Gordon and I strangely had the exact same childhood, where we both had pediatric dentist fathers who listened to old radio dramas in the car. So this is a perfect road trip thing. If you're deciding to take a trip out of the city for the day, that's a good thing to listen to in the car too.
And get some good buds and some good stereo system to hear it, though. Only if there's good audio in the car, because Bart did. We talked about it earlier. He just crushed it with the ambient noises and the thing and this here, and then a bat flying around your head over here. Like, what the shit is going on? Like, this is a two pod or a nice sound system podcast for you guys to take in, and you can bang it out in the night. Gentlemen, it's the last 5 minutes of our podcast here on the Pod Spotter, and no one is listening to the last 5 minutes. No one listens to the last 5 minutes of any podcast. Think yourself, have you ever listened to the end of any podcast? No. By now, the jog is done. The Blue Apron is cooked. Everyone is gone. And so I use this time to basically to ourselves you can recite a poem. You can tell off a former loved one, a former boss. Basically, use it for whatever you want to talk about it. Because after all, no one is listening, and I will go first. I have to get this story off my chest because it was a little. I had a bit of a stressful incident here the other day taking a jog. I want to apologize to somebody because I was out jogging. I hunkered down through the pandemic. I've been in Queens here, and so I'm exercising in the streets of Astoria, and I'm running around. I'm taking a jog, and this guy runs a red light, almost hits me, and the car comes like really close to me, very close, just runs right through the red light. And I must have been pent up, stressed that day or something, but I didn't know I didn't know how else to react. And I just gave it up. Just a jab, just a car, gave it like a hostile little jab. I'm a theater kid. I'm not a fighter, but I did that. And I apologize for that, but I kept running. And then this soda bottle came flying by me. And I turn around and there's the guy, and he got out of the car. And it's like, it's this mountain of a guy. And I'm like, what's with the bottle, man? You throw a bottle and you run a red light? And he's like, what are you going to do about it? He's like this big Italian guy. What are you going to do about it? And I instinctively just shouted, nothing. I'm afraid of you.
Do you think he went home and was like, Jeanette, am I a scary guy? Are people just naturally afraid of me? I wanted to have a discourse.
You there.
I misinterpreted.
Come close. Let us talk.
You're right. I should have.
Zach, sometimes in a time of great stress, we see things through a prism. And even though this man was in fact very polite and was asking you for conversation, you brought your own
fight or flight
preconceived notions. Yeah, of what you expect.
Man,
so who's at fault here, Zach?
Clearly me, and now I'm sorry not only for punching your car, but for failing to recognize that you wanted to have human interaction. I'm sorry, COVID's make us all a little crazy. If you're out there, he's not listening because no one's listening, so it doesn't matter. That's my share. If anybody else has anything, it is not. You don't have to share anything if you don't want to.
I have gained 19 pounds
of muscle.
Yeah. Usually right around the midsection, though. Right around the midsection.
Well, that's where you need it. That's the core.
I actually made a rule early on. I think it started late March, early April, that I have to wear pants or shorts by 9 a.m. And that actually helped a lot.
Did you set a pants alarm?
I have.
An Alexa reminder is like.
I would always check the clock. I would be sitting because I've been getting up at 6 a.m. I don't know about you, but I'm always up at 6. I go to bed with this. I wake up with the sun. I go to bed with the sun. So, but I have to make the bed, but I also have to wear pants or shorts by 9 a.m. That's the rule, and I've been very good about that, and it actually has helped.
I love the idea of you just sitting around at like 8:50.
Oh, come on, 9. Come on.
Do this. The pants, just put them on.
Those rituals are important. I think they help during times like this. I went for a dental cleaning recently because I like a clean mouth. Yeah. And my dentist said that there has been a huge incidence in people getting cavities because they just weren't brushing their teeth during COVID because of that sort of that routine and that ritual. People living by themselves, they were like, for what, So
we got to be careful with corollary and causalary, whatever that other word is, because it might also be that people are just eating shittier. As to Christopher,
that could be too.
Just be eating and drinking more coffee to medicate. Who knows? I don't know.
Alcohol doesn't give you cavities, though.
No, but the bleaching tray that I put Tootsie Rolls in did. I have a feeling that.
Just
even
I got a toothbrush I can borrow.
Pretty good. Let's end on teeth. Let's end the Dracula podcast on teeth. It feels appropriate. Unless Gordon, you wanted to share anything, that feels like a nice place to stop.
About my teeth?
About anything, about life in general, anything to share.
Oh, we got a new puppy 3 weeks ago. It was a departure.
Yeah, a little ray of sunshine. Nice.
And now we have a little ray of sunshine named Anton Chekhov, who is our little 11-week-old multi-poo apricot colored, who is adorable and also bites.
That's beautiful. So you are kind of in my boat right now. I keep calling this paternity leave. I have a 7-month-old at home, and so
congratulations!
Human. This is a human form, baby.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you. So it's
is he a rescue also, or
she was rescued from my wife, and we're taking care of her.
Get me out of here!
Yeah. Guys, thanks for sharing the pod. Thanks for sharing your time with us. And anyone still listening, though you shouldn't still be listening, please head over and give whatever you can to the Actors Fund, because it helps everybody that is helping our society culturally, no matter race, color, age, shape, size, religion. Thanks, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the pod.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been the Pod Spotter, where we showcase the pods that we think you should know about. But if you feel like we need to know about a pod and we haven't highlighted it yet, please let us know via thepodspotter.com or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or any other place where you put pictures of your kids. Thanks, everybody. This has been Zack Robidas. The Pod Spotter is created by the Price Brothers, produced by Oink Inc. Radio, associate producer Tori Adams, and is recorded and produced at Baker Sound in Philadelphia.